I'm pretty excited for these matchups. I mean, I think Carmine Corp making it is like it's kind of poetic as a jungler for Yike to beat G2. You know, a team kicks out their jungler, they blame him for all their problems. They're like, oh, I never got any jungle pressure. I don't know the story, but I'm projecting.
That's what they said. Yeah.
And then he comes back with a new team and 3-0s them. It is justice for junglers everywhere.
Hello and welcome back to The Dive, driven by IKEA Season 9, Episode number 6. First stand, the first stand is coming. It's on the way. We're sending Team Liquid.
Are they sitting currently?
Are we super confident?
Yeah, I predicted them.
Woo!
I thought they
win? First stand?
Yeah, like no, the whole LCS.
Wait, no, you didn't. You said C9.
What? No, I didn't say that. I wasn't wrong in all my predictions. No, I knew Liquid would win.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for them. I'm nervous for them.
So here's the reason that I'm nervous. If people don't know the format for First Stand, only one region is eliminated in the first round. There's everybody.
It's not gonna be us.
So only 5 regions are going. One team from each region.
Yeah.
And one person is going to be like the laughing stock region that gets kicked out. So, I mean, everyone's looking at us, PCS, and EU.
Sorry, us? What?
Yeah.
He's never even made it a Swiss stage of Worlds.
I mean,
not once.
Okay. Even if you're an umpty super fan, like Emily or something, you still got to be a little bit nervous.
You got to stay clenched.
That he's going to throw some games. He's going to get
still getting flamed when he just won the split 3-0.
He's a GOAT, you know. He got the trophy. I'm still a little bit nervous, hoping that he doesn't
get... unnamed Team Liquid member, and I quote, after they won, I was like, congrats. He's like, yeah, Umpty's still trying to throw this.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
I know who it is because the person in question said something similar to me.
Yeah.
So,
who?
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to say who it is. What role they play?
What kind of haircut / eye color / height /
No, I mean, I'm nervous for Umpty for sure, but I'm not. Anyway, we'll talk more about First Stand a little bit later because we weren't gonna actually kick off with First Stand, but then Kobe went rogue.
Well, just gotta be honest with how you're feeling on the day. You know, how you feeling, Isaac?
I'm feeling good. You know who else is feeling good? Faker. Faker says he doesn't have any plans about retirement. Never thought about it. That to me is crazy.
Okay, that has to be true.
You think that's cap?
Okay. I mean, he's probably. I guess if he means it in the sense of like he's never considered doing it.
Yeah.
Or like he's never thought.
It's never crossed his mind.
But it's not like he's never thought of like, will I ever retire? It's not like
he's so laser focused. He doesn't have time to think about it.
Every interview asks him about it, and every time it's just nope, no thoughts, never thought about it.
I mean, I definitely take it as I never thought I was going to do it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
He's not prepping to retire or anything. But the rest of the quote from the article, this one's a One Esports article, says, I don't have any concerns about reflexes because what's important for pro longevity is to keep my passion burning and continue to put effort to improving. And like, I actually it's obviously it's like a kind of a funny sounding quote, but at the same time, like I do fully agree. I think people have always really kind of over exaggerated the whole like, this person's 25, time to retire. Like this kind of thing has always been a bit ridiculous to me. Yeah. And I've always said, and I always believed in all the games I've been involved in, that it's way more about, can you actually maintain the level of discipline and the amount of hours and stuff that you need to put in to stay at the top. And when people are really young, when people come in as like a 17-year-old pro gamer, it's easier for them to have, I think, that one-track mind. But as people get older, Faker's 28. Some people hit those ages, and then they want a girlfriend. They maybe want to get married. They maybe want like other things going on in their life more than that. And I think that more than anything is why there's the correlation of like decline in skill with age, because people have more other interests and aren't practicing and playing like they used to.
Oh, 100%. This is something that's been very relevant to me because my whole career basically is like, I started playing pro when I was 19, and, as soon as, like you were saying, you get to like 23, 24, you get considered old. And the whole time I'm sitting there like, what are you talking about? How am I old? I'm literally like, for any other career, you're considered super young.
LeBron's
in your
40
20s.
and playing a way
Right,
more physical sport.
And it's one of those things the whole time I'm just sitting there, and because you can't say anything about it as the person that's getting called old, right? Because it's just like, no, you're just old and mad. And it's just like, great. And, but
That's a double whammy.
realistically,
Before you were just old, now you're old and mad.
yeah, exactly. And so I'm just sitting there saying every single thing about esports is unprecedented. There has been zero, pro gaming before this. This is the first. It's never been a long-term career path. People, like you were saying, it's comes down to how much time you have and the passion, right? Because most older people that I see is like, I feel like it's the older people that love jumping on it and using it as an excuse for why they're not good. They're like, oh man, yeah, I'm too old. I'm like, dude, you sucked when you were young too. Like, what are you on about? And so it's like people just love projecting this, I think. But I'm really glad to see Faker doing this. He is absolutely and
he is the main character.
Yeah, he's absolutely the protagonist, the GOAT, everything, the trailblazer. And I like that he's continuing to play. I feel like that's so good for the scene and all other pros who are playing still, because it just goes to show it's, dispelling this myth that you can't keep playing. Because if you just look at other games, look at Counter-Strike or fighting games or whatnot, like there's a lot of really good players in their 30s, I don't know, 40s maybe.
Yeah.
And I would argue those games probably require faster reflexes than League does. Like obviously League has a lot of mechanical skill, but if you can pull off a fighting game, then like surely you can pull off League, because that's all just like technical input.
The fighting game one is a really good example, and that one gets brought up a lot because they've got champions that are in their high 30s, even up to 40s, and obviously like that one takes a lot of reaction time. I mean, everyone's happy to hear that Faker's going to continue because he also like bridges the fandom from literal different generations. People who don't even play League anymore will be like, what? Faker won Worlds again? And they'll be happy, because they like grew up with that, and they'll tune back in. And then also new fans are like, oh my God, this guy's so amazing. So it's just he really does like tie the entire like cinematic universe of League of Legends together.
I've noticed that he even transcends not just League but any game, and I swear I have some friends who aren't even into gaming who know who Faker is, and it's just his name has become synonymous with like peak of your craft, right? It's like you have a really good play in any game, you go, oh, I'm Faker, and everyone knows what you're talking about, right? And it's just like, that's so cool.
I mean, League esports like internationally it's just the biggest esport, right? And World Finals has become such a spectacle that like a lot of people I know with just even a passing interest in gaming will watch the World Finals, right? Because it's basically the Super Bowl of esports, right? Like it's that sort of kind of cultural phenomenon where there's like, big musical performance, there's like all this stuff around it. And so, so many people know Faker's name. It's just like, there's lots of sports I don't watch. There's lots of games I don't play, but you've probably heard of, if you're into gaming, like maybe one person from there, right? Like maybe you've never played Smash, but like Mango or whatever, right? Like, these kind of things, or you've never played Counter-Strike, but you've heard of Simple or something, right? So I think, it's that kind of thing with Faker. And he's in just like regular pop culture stuff now too, especially in Korea. You hear people talking about, oh, my favorite esport athlete is Faker, and it's like K-pop stars talking about them and stuff like that. So it's definitely cool to see. And I think, Faker isn't the only one doing this, and he's also certainly not the oldest, right? He's like 28. I mean, we have like Core and Impact and stuff who I think are both now over 30, right? And doing really well. And there's tons of examples in other games too. So I do think it's cool. And I do think the most impressive thing to me about people having those long careers is just like the dedication and the consistency that it takes, because it's really hard to stay at the top of a game if it's not your entire focus of your whole life, right? And so you have to be willing to like push everything else aside, and to do that for 10 years, 12 years, whatever, that some people are doing now is like, I think, pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's why he said that's the number one most important thing, the passion.
Yep.
You know who else has a lot of passion? Cadro and Los Ratones fans. And they won their league, which
NLC.
A lot of people are expecting. Some people, I guess, not expecting it, but they absolutely smashed that league. They lost like one game.
Yeah, I think they 3 games is what they ended up losing. Yeah.
So
The entire time. So they absolutely stomped it. And so then everyone is immediately talking about, all right, let's see them versus some LEC teams.
well, that's what the tier 3.
Yeah, they're going to be in EMEA Masters now, right?
Yeah, so they're going from tier 3 to tier 2.
Yep.
Okay.
I-
I mean, it's still cool. Like, it's really cool to see.
Yeah.
I will say it's like having that's to me it kind of gives the feeling of those people who, they might be Masters players who make a new account and then they're like, look at this win rate to diamond, and it's just like, cool, man. Now play against people with your own skill.
Yeah, you have
Like,
LEC winners playing in tier 3.
yeah, exactly. So obviously not trying to take anything away from them. It is really cool, but at the same time, it's like, to me, I think getting into tier 2 is the bigger accomplishment than like looking at their win rate, because it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you were playing against people who are just not as good as
I
you.
mean, the most fun thing for me about Ratones is just like I already really enjoyed watching Bowson. He was kind of like my, a lot of times I watch VODs, a lot of times I watch like pros streaming and stuff. And if I wanted to just kind of like watch something that was just entertaining, he was one of the guys I would watch a lot of, because he was like really good and he played a very different style, right? And so for me, it was interesting thinking about like, will this style actually work against organized teams? Like, would it actually work in a pro thing? And that was where I kind of had the biggest questions. I honestly thought going into it that he was going to be more than good enough to do well against these players, but I thought he would change his style. Like, I thought he would actually just play like a more normal style and not just always doing all the proxy stuff and whatever. But like, nope, he's still playing like Vi top and stuff like that, and and Scion and all these picks and proxying and like making it really work. So I think that to me was kind of like the most fun thing about the whole experiment, is just seeing a guy who hasn't played in pro, who's known as this solo queue guy who's a good player but plays this weird style, like really kind of bring it to pro. And so that's gonna be really exciting for me to also see in like EMEA Masters and stuff, as you play better and better teams and better players. Can they kind of like still make that play style work? And I know he won like I think Rookie of the Year and stuff for NLC, which is obviously like gotta feel pretty cool for him.
And I do think it is impressive that they won the league so emphatically too. Because like Dom tried to make a team, double lifts team, as I heard, had some rocky scrims or something in this start. So I don't know. Like it sounds like, oh yeah, you got a bunch of past winners or whatever, just slap them together on a team, and then go stomp some people. But it actually is impressive. And the work that they put into it, like they have a really good editor too, who like edits all the views together for their scrims and stuff, and like makes it a really like
all the work they put in, like their editor.
The viewing experience, in addition to the work that they put into being a good team, and actually like if you listen to it, and then you get a real feel for how much work they're putting in and the passion that they have, for competing together. So it's just like it really does kind of suck you in. It's definitely a super cool phenomenon, and I hope that the like NA version with doublers team and stuff works out. And they keep going strong. We got to check in on that, Will. You're our inside man.
So I think they did their first round of the
OQ.
Yeah, of the OQ, and
I heard they stomped those.
It was I heard they were playing against silver players.
Yeah, the very first round. No, then they played against. I think they did like the first 2 rounds.
Okay.
I haven't kept super up to date.
That's a joke, right?
No, literally silver players.
Literally?
Yeah, because for OQs, there's no requirements. Anyone can sign up. So it was.
It sounds like you're memeing on them. You're like,
no, I mean because it was 64 teams.
So it was I actually have the line here. So they have a combined 16 LCS titles. Their first match was against 2 silver players, a platinum player, a gold player, and an unranked player.
Oh man,
that was their that was their first.
Okay, so
first big test.
It is definitely a pretty troll matchup, but I will say.
Well, that platinum player has hands.
It was 64 teams, and their team was number 1 seed. So they're playing against literally the bottom ranked seed, and it's based off solo queue rating. So it's like of anyone who signed up, and it's an open qualifier, right? So
I think there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I mean it's whatever.
Qualifier.
It's like, is it going to be decent quality games at all? No, but that's part of an open qualifier. You're going to have those kind of matches. If you're the first seed, you should probably get weak opponents on the first one. So.
MLGs used to have back in the day, like anyone, like local teams could just sign up. Like you didn't have to like pre-qualify. There was like 2 pools. It's like the first 2 rounds of like every WoW event were just like you're just playing some kids who just like showed up.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I got my start with all the competitive stuff. Is there was the Go for LOL tournaments. I don't know if you guys played in those or remember them at all, but basically that was a weekly tournament you would do. I think it was Sundays or something like that. And that's how I started playing competitively, is because, for a long time I only played normal games,
Yep.
got really high rated normal. So then me and a bunch of normal players made a team called Normal Stars, and we would just play in these Go for All tournaments. And I think it took us like 3 tries before we actually won one of them. And, the reward was like $20 of RP or something.
Yep.
So the reward was trash, but
I casted you in Normal
Really?
Stars. Yeah, because that's how I started, was casting Go for Lols, and like you remember TSM Open Invitationals and stuff like that.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
that was like the early days
Yeah,
of League and
yeah.
whatnot. But the story I was getting to is that because we won Go for Law, we were in this like scrim chat back in the Skype days, and this was during season 2 Worlds, like leading
Pouring
up
out
to
for
it.
Skype, by the way, isn't it going away?
Yeah, I would say rest in peace, but nah.
No, it got me DDoS too many times.
Nah, Skype was not it. Skype was not it. But anyway, so Moscow 5, like during their most dominant era, came into the scrim chat and is like, "Hey, is anyone available to scrim?"
Yeah.
And I kind of jokingly wrote in there, I was like, "My team can scrim you guys. We just won Go for LOL." And they're like, "Okay, we'll play you." And I was like, "What? Really?" And so it was us, just like 5 randoms basically playing against one of the best teams in the world, and we actually beat them in a game. Like we played 2 games and we won the first one.
Yeah.
We had this like Jace Skarner Morgana strat where you'd like black shield the Skarner and speed him up and you flash ult somebody. And so that was like a really sick moment. So that just goes to show that like these open qualifiers can have really cool moments for just like the average player, like
It's
being able to
super
get your
cool.
foot in the door. Because none of that would happen if we couldn't just sign up for a tournament like that.
And you never know where the next like star or whatever could come from, right? Maybe it's one of these players who just gets slammed in the OQ playing against someone that's a hero of theirs, and then they get to actually like become more interested in the competitive scene. Like I never played in Go for Laws or anything, but when you used to have to qualify through the ranked ladder, I played a lot of ranked 5v5, and we got to Challenger when we played against like TSM one time. We played against like collegiate teams. We played against some of the, back then it was challengers, but tier 2, NACL, whatever teams and stuff like that. And it was like a really cool experience, right? Like we got absolutely blasted when we played the good teams. But it was fun, right? Like we killed Bjergsen one time. We were really excited about it. We like lost in 18 minutes or whatever, but it felt cool. So it can be really cool to have those kind of opportunities.
Okay, that's funny because when you mentioned playing against TSM, the first thought that came to my mind was back in Dynamic Queue when TSM was just the most guilty team for just 5-man queuing into solo queue and like release Aurelion Soul. Sneaky was like first time off rolling a new champion. He had like 22 deaths or something against all of TSM. And I was like, that was a really good experience. Kind of a side tangent, but
Yeah.
brought back the memories.
Definitely a lot of fun though, and yeah, I mean, Los Ratones really cool. The Ready Corp stuff is cool. Near Airport, I just think it's a fun trend, right? And it definitely makes for great content. So congrats to Los Ratones. We got to talk about the patch that's coming out here for, I guess it's technically patch 25.05 is what it's called.
You're welcome. Thank you. They finally reverted their stupid adding the season number into there, which confused everyone and didn't help anyone trying to look up anything on the internet. So we're back to like regular.
I always just searched lol patch,
Patch
and the first result is always the new patch. That's all I've ever searched.
Yeah,
I was like, it bugged me really to an unreasonable level, I think.
I can tell. Based on your response.
when they added in the S01 into the middle of the
Kobe
patch.
spent all his savings hiring trucks. That's all. We're just gonna leave it at that.
Yeah. Anyways, and now it's really easy because we're in 2025 and this is patch number 5, and so it's 25.05.
Fair enough.
Cool. Nice patch notes that are coming out. And these are going to be the patch notes we're playing on for first stand.
Yep.
So
Yep.
this is a very important patch. And
the big thing is the lane swap changes by far.
which is the thing that we have to start with. And I actually talked to Freak at the office just yesterday about them a lot.
Nice name drop.
wow,
yeah,
you talked to Freak? You got it like that?
I call him David.
You don't call him Mr. Turley?
I call him David. We're kind of close like that. I've known him for a little bit. He was very sure that it is super killing lane swaps, and I also am pretty sure that it is definitely killing lane swaps, because if you go over some of the things it's doing, it is so extreme.
So I can give you the quick rundown. So from 130 to 330, if 2 enemy champions, both of whom don't have a jungle item, are in top or mid, that basically what happens is the defending turret gets 95% damage reduction. Defending turret does 1,000% damage to minions and gives all of the gold and XP from kills to the nearest allied champion in the lane. The offending champions also get half gold and experience, and this lingers for 20 seconds if you've been in top lane. So even if you just step in for a second, your top laner is going to get griefed by that, and then 6-second lingering in mid lane. And in top lane only, the defending turret also deals 1,000% damage to champions and gives the defending champion under the tower 50% damage reduction. Like, these are comical numbers.
So there's actually two main parts in the way that Freak was talking about it to me as well. And the main one is that there's like a line that is drawn from Pixel Brush, basically, all the way up by Krugs. So this area that turns on the trigger for this debuff, basically, this lane swap debuff to you on the top side, that's going to give you half golden experience. If you're the ones with anyone who's not the jungle, by the way, up there, that's not tagged as jungler from jungle item, is like even preventing kind of weird cases. They try to think about even if you're like going between the towers, or if you like have a support up there who like tries to go in and poke and then like go back away. Like, they really covered a large area. And not only are you going to be, like insanely disadvantaged, almost impossible tower dives. I would say impossible, because
For sure impossible.
The towers also one-shot minions as well as one-shotting champions, basically. So
And the champion has a shield wall.
So you also guarantee, if you try and do this, then the person never has to leave their tower, because you gain all the golden experience that your minions or the tower kill. So if the top laner who got swapped on just stays at their tower, your minions that are really far out there, even if they try and freeze on you, are going to be giving you perfect CS golden experience, while the duo people out there are getting half of everything.
Yeah.
So it is like completely impossible to me. This ends at 3:30, by the way. So it does end a bit earlier than the 4-minute mark. And the mid lane is also relaxed on the
Debuff is 6 seconds instead of 20.
and
the tower doesn't one shot.
It also, yeah, exactly. It also doesn't have the second half of it.
So I mean, it's interesting. Like traditional lane swaps as they've been done, I think are absolutely 100% dead. The question is, are there other ways that you can do it, right? And so like I've been talking to some pros and some coaches about this and stuff, and some people are like, nope, there's no point in doing anything anymore, just like standard League of Legends laning. Other people are like, you can still lane swap for sure. You just send your AD carry solo top, and then I'm like, that's not a lane swap. That's just like you just have an Ashe top, right? Yeah. And I personally don't really have a problem with that, right? If people want to do that, like if you actually think it's better to send your Twitch top for the first 3 levels against the Rumble while your Cassante and Rakan lane bot, like I'm okay with that, right? Like I actually think that's more interesting anyway.
Yeah.
Because then there is still like interaction between the champions, right? It's not this Rumble now having to lane against 2 people. He just has lane against an AD carry, which could still be hard or whatever for the first couple levels. But like I'm okay with that. The other secondary thing that I think, my assumption is we might still see, and I know talking to some people, they were saying, yeah, that definitely be the case, is just like a later swap, right? Where you just swap for 330, right? Like where people are like, oh, you'll just try to like push in, crash the waves, and then go top at 330 and like, just try to like survive there for like, for the next couple levels. Again, I think that avoids most of the like abuse cases anyway, because most of the point of lane swapping away from these really punching lanes is the first couple levels, right? Yep. So it's like, sure, if they pick Varus Ashe with double Hail of Blades, like you could lane swap away at 330, but you've probably already gotten super pounded for the first couple levels because you're going to get zoned off XP and stuff. And if you're losing the 2v2 anyway, then you can't necessarily get push. And if you can't get push, then you're lane swapping away from like a wave crashing in on you, right? So like I feel like there's even these potential cases that people could be going into, I still think there's like punishments for. So
yeah, I don't think there's a problem with later swapping.
I don't think so either.
That's just lane assignments later into the game. The only problem I think is
from level 1,
the first 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, and I think obviously there's the viewer dilemma of watching lane swaps is pretty boring. It's really predictable. But I think the biggest issue as far as the gameplay was the top laner situation, right? It's like some games, if you were the top laner, you just did not get to play. It's like, the lane swap got messed up, and now I'm 3 levels down on their top laner for the entire game and everyone else in the game. So like, all right, GG's. So I think this is definitely going to help with that. And I don't know, as far as the specifics of the lane swap, I don't know if every change is perfect. I don't know what kind of impact it's going to have on solo queue, if any. I mean, ideally, not much, but I mean, I've seen some people talking about it's like, yeah, I'm getting grief. Like my support ganked my lane, and now like GG or
Yep.
whatever. So obviously, there's going to be probably some collateral damage with any heavy-handed changes like that. But
Yeah.
I'm happy to see it because lane swaps have been gone on for so long. It was like most of last year, I think, and then coming into this year as well. So I would much like I was hoping for this. I was hoping for some really heavy-handed changes just to like try to get rid of them because you always run into the issue is like they try incremental changes or like, okay, we're gonna like buff this a little bit, but it doesn't do enough. Then all of a sudden, oh, MSI is coming up, oh, Worlds is coming up. We can't do a big change now. So I like that they're doing this huge change early. I don't know if it's perfect or whatnot, but I'm glad they did something because
Yeah.
lane swap is just not how League is meant to be played. It's not fun, and hopefully it's not going to show up again.
And to like represent the other side, I know, like one of my initial concerns was like, oh, people, what if people are kind of like doing this to like grief you and stuff? But the more I've thought about it, I kind of realized the reality is like they put in some things that people aren't going to like accidentally do it. So champions who are about to trigger lane swap detection get a warning ping as well as a text warning that they're about to trigger the penalties. And champions who do trigger it will have a debuff, an icon over their champion, and a repeated text warning that they're taking lane swap penalties. So at that point, it's intentionally griefing if you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, yeah, like there probably are going to be some games where like my support just comes in lanes top with me just to like ruin the game. But the reality is, if they're doing
can
it
do
that
that
extreme,
anyway.
exactly, then they could just be walking into the tower anyway. So I think, with all those text warnings and stuff, like that was one of my concerns is that like what if people are accidentally ruining the games because there would be some adjustment period and there may still be some. But it's definitely like a big change, and I can see why some people are averse to it because this is the first change it feels like of that type where they are just like, we couldn't fix it, basically, right? Like in some ways it is kind of like admitting defeat. Like clearly for a long time they had been wanting to change things and wanting to, make it so lane swaps weren't prevalent. They couldn't do it in a way that like wasn't really, really heavy handed. And like this kind of change was something that I remember we literally talked about this like well over a year ago. Like, well, you could just make it so the minions give no gold and things like that, right? So it's basically where it has come to. So I can understand kind of like the aversion to it because it's kind of like this weird, complex thing that you kind of have to know the rules to and blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't feel like normal League of Legends, and the idea that, oh, well, like what if we like insta-kill 2v2 and I see a really good opportunity to roam mid as a support, really early. Well, now you're actually maybe punishing your mid laner if you do that. So there's some like weird unintended things. But I will say that the amount of times, like I love playing roaming supports. Like I play a lot of Bard, I play like a lot of that kind of stuff. The amount of times that you're realistically roaming mid or top pre 330 is like pretty low.
And you can still roam mid. The deficit on roaming mid is not that bad. It doesn't turn on the 1000% tower damage. So like you can.
But
still
they
go
do
for a
get
kill.
50% less gold and XP.
Only during your gank, and it drops off in 6 seconds. So if you get a kill or something like that, it doesn't reduce the kill,
Yeah.
gold or anything like that. So it is still possible
Yeah.
to gank mid, and like a couple of minions might die in that small time, and so you lose 50% golden experience.
But I would be pretty
On a couple of minions. It definitely has a huge. It's definitely like not.
Like if you cut
it's
my-
not the incentive to do it is much lower, but it is still possible. That was one of the things that he specifically said why mid is different from top lane.
Yeah.
Is so that you can do that. There is a much bigger cost to it, and so like you'll definitely be pissed if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, like if I lose my like half XP off of like a cannon and things like that, I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah, and I get there.
I actually would almost rather that it's like it's not possible because I don't want someone to make that judgment call for me in mid lane because I think it's like not gonna be worth it.
Yeah, and one thing that I was kind of hoping for, I don't know if I talked about this on another episode, but kind of like the deadlock system where I don't know if you guys have played that one, but basically it just puts you in your lane when the game starts. Like you don't have a choice. Like you don't choose which lane you go to. It just pops you out there. And I feel like something like that in League, obviously they're trying these changes. It's hard to say what the long-term effects of them are going to be. Will it fully kill lane swaps, whatnot? But that's something that I was kind of hoping for. Is it's like, what if because something I've talked about all the time for literally years since I was last pro playing is like I hate the impact of level ones in League. Right? It's like, oh, my top laner was going to the bathroom during loading screen, and all of a sudden they're 5-man behind me and I'm dead, and now my top side jungle's gone.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, all right, let's just get rid of level ones. I hate that. It's too game warping for something you have no control over. Just put people in their lanes, minions spawn, boom, game starts. Because realistically, it's like, yeah, there are these fringe cases where like, oh, but what if I'm a Twitch support main who runs Exhaust Ignite and I want to gank both soul lanes at level 1? What about that? What about my playstyle? I'm just like, sure, that might be nerfed a little bit now, but like at the same time, if you're a soul laner, who the hell wants to play against that? Like that is miserable for everyone. It's like, some price is okay for these changes. Like some cost is all right. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, okay, I think the game is best when it's not just complete chaos from level 1, because then you end up in these situations where it's like you have people that are literally just suffering, spamming FF for like from minute 1 to 15, and it's like that's kind of cringe.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm okay with the game being a little bit more structured from the beginning. Let people play at least the first few levels in peace.
Yeah, the level 1 debate is like a whole nother debate that is like very closely related to lane swaps, because if you remember at the very beginning of League when dragons were just spawned too at level 1, and everyone, we would have like 10-person melees at the dragon pit, everyone level 1. It was super crazy. As far as like the people proponents of having level 1s, we'll talk about, like, the strategy of like going and getting your deep wards and to be able to set up your next part of your jungle path. Or I'm also guilty of this, like, especially because I play like a early game ganking jungler, to like go and specifically do invades a lot to try and like burn flashes and make the game, more unstable and more weird. So it's like, I know since we've had it for so long, there are some people that will want to hold on to it because there is a lot of volatility to level 1s and it can be exciting, but it also is like, some games are decided by level 1s, right?
I don't know
that's kind of weird.
I don't know if you guys have seen this more, and I don't know if this is like something that got popularized by like a streamer or like what is happening. But I swear, when I play top lane, no one would ever do like invades towards top side, right? Like it was all like in the top lane brush.
I know why.
I've been seeing this all the time now, where it's just like, I don't know what percentage, but massively more than I've seen in my entire time playing League. You go top lane and there's 5 people stacked in the second brush, and it is happening all the time.
Are you playing Heimer top or what?
No, just like any champion.
I know why, because I did spam level 1 invades all the time because I'm a cheese volibear player. I'm trying to get level 1 ganks off all the time and trying to burn so much.
Why is everyone doing this?
It's because of the fog of war changes. So it used to be, and my most consistent strategy would always be level 1 invades towards bottom side of the map.
Yeah, that's
because it was because it was way easier to avoid vision by using, if there's a brush, they can't see anything behind the brush and it does like this cone or whatever. And so you could do really easy hugging the wall or going behind brushes. But now bottom side, when they change the map, there's extra space, and so it's like you can't go in unseen. Like you can still like force invades and stuff like that. You can't go in unseen there. And so I immediately, as soon as they changed the map, I would always just go up for the lane, invades towards top side, because those are way, way, way less risky. And like you're saying, people weren't used to it as much, and so they wouldn't be expecting it. But top laners, there's way more angles that you can go to pinch just to get the summoner spell. Yeah. I don't even think that I'm not even going in thinking we're usually going to like get the kill or anything.
Yeah.
But even getting the summoner spell, it completely changes so many lanes so heavily. And then you can, adjust your jungle route accordingly. And I also just, love doing grubs, and it makes, topside focus.
Yeah.
Way easier.
Plus,
top laners are
mental boom.
Yeah,
as you're saying this, I'm like, wow, as a top laner, that just sounds like great gameplay. It's like, oh, I'm chunked to 1 HP with no flash.
Yeah.
Guess I'm getting to play this.
Once
game.
you're already like blind picking, right? And then you're playing into some horrible range matchups. You're like, okay, I need side brush control. And then you're like going up to maybe get a ward or like see if they place a ward in the side brush or whatever. And then it's like there's just 5 people in the bush. Okay.
GG outplayed. Nice job, guys.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of lane ganks in general, though, and especially because top laners have less wards to use and less area to cover. Like, you can definitely make their lives miserable, and
That's true.
They tilt really easy, and you get a lot of forfeits that way.
All right. Well, it is it is tough for sure. It's tough. It's tough out there being top laner.
What are your what are your favorite like champion changes for this patch though? Because this lane swap stuff is going to be controversial. Like, as much as we are all pretty aligned, I know that we're like this block of we hate a lot of lane swaps. Some people did like them, and of course these changes, we'll have to see how it actually turns out, because they are definitely not perfect and it is super ham-fisted. But we could focus on the champions and how it's going to change the meta for this tournament.
It did remind me, like, it's a good point, because I meant to talk about potentially what this means for pro, because I know I have heard some people's concern is that this actually makes pro more stale in a different way. I'm just trying to represent the opinion, right?
Yeah.
And the idea being that 2v2 could become like, essentially you can only play like, double Halo Blades, double range, like this type of stuff, and like actually limit, some of the kind of like, I guess, flexibility in that way. Because there is the argument that, even though maybe lane swaps are less interesting for the first couple levels, it actually allows you to play like a wider breadth of champions, a wider breadth of styles. Because if you have a weak matchup, you're not necessarily just like precluded. You can't just like not play, right? You're able to swap and get past those hard parts. So that is, I know, a potential concern for some people, is that it's like, do we want to go back to double Halo Blades, Ashe Varus, like Callista, Renata, like all this type of stuff, where someone in a 2v2 can't play?
My response to that one is that that's going to be a focus with balancing then. You change the setting of the game, and then you balance according to the new setting. I also would respond to that with, you did gain some champions, like weak laning champions viability, but you lost like, Fiora and stuff. Is like, how do you ever play Fiora in a lane swap or something, some sort of like very squishy technical.
You don't like being Fiora at level 1 with 2 CS?
or like a Kale,
good for you?
a Kale or something, right? It's like you gain some champions in setting changes, and you lose some other champions.
Yeah, it is. It's funny because this exact debate has gone on since like season 3.
Yeah,
this has gone on for such a long time, and obviously there was a period without lane swaps where people weren't really talking about it, but it was the exact same arguments back then. Is just like, oh, lane swaps, it is kind of a solution to those terrible matchups, but to me it's just like, it causes so many more problems than it solves. So I think there are alternative solutions to like, if these double Halo Blades, just super degenerate bot lanes are oppressive, you can balance it. You can like nerf the early game stuff they're using to get these huge advantages. You can, add some defensive early game, whether it's like runes, items, whatever, to like allow people to endure it a little bit better. So I think there's probably solutions that aren't lane swaps. So I totally get, like, some champs are just miserable to lane into, and it sucks when that's the meta, but lane swaps not a solution in my mind.
I will say, as far as the effects on pro and the most immediate ones, and something that I'm pretty confident in, the first thing I thought of is they're actually taking away the old bulwark to put in this system. So if you do pick a very good pushing top lane matchup, you can get rich on plates. There's no damage reduction on the plates now. If there's no lane swap, you can farm plates insanely well. So I expect a lot of people to play for farming turret plates. The damage reduction being off of the plates in mid and top lane for early levels, like, you can get some good matchups where, especially in Fearless like and stuff, and
demolish
and using red side.
That's true.
I really thought first is going to be like plate money is going to go up.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there was a period of time where junglers taking demolish too was pretty sick, and it's like, if I'm playing someone with aftershock like Sejuani, it's like might as well just take Demolish. You get a gank, you push in, you just blast a plate real quick. Like
Yeah.
that's a really good point. I hadn't considered that. And yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely going to be relevant because you crash the cannon wave with a fat wave, you get a plate, you base, and that's like that could be an item breakpoint you couldn't have gotten before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. As far as some of the actual changes themselves, most of them it's like kind of little nerfs on some of the ones that are popular. Roar gets a little nerf, Ash gets a little nerf, though I think that one's pretty irrelevant. It's just like R damage down by 50. I don't think that really matters at all. And Bessa gets a little bit of a nerf as well on the E. There's like a lot of little knocks like this. Cho'Gath got kind of like the AP build gets a bit of a nerf with the QW nerfs. The E is doing more damage though, so more like the tanky style. I guess it's supposed to be.
It was the speed build. It wasn't AP build because they're not changing like the AP ratios, but like the speed build where it was Shirelia's and then Deadmans and stuff.
Deadmans,
So he would just like walk at people, and it's because they increased the base damages previously because Cho'Gath is so bad for a long time.
I honestly am wondering if people. I think if people started practicing Cho'Gath before these nerfs and, they're confident on him, if they'll still play him anyway, because there's, so I can't remember his name, but there's an EU player who does that build a lot, who's kind of like the one who started it and was known for it. Yeah. He says to play it mid. He got like a 95% win rate, something crazy. And I think mid Cho'Gath would be so obnoxious to play against in pro meta because you're just like almost unpunishable, and then you do this speed build, and you're just running around everywhere eating people.
That's just mid lane with like everything. Mid lane is just 100 times easier to play because you can't get punished in those matchups, right? Where you have these long lanes.
I was gonna say I personally never had a problem with this Cho'Gath speed build because as soon as I saw it, I was ganking that Cho'Gath.
Is he top or mid though?
He's in mid.
Really?
That's where I've always saw.
That's where I've always seen
it. And he's easy. Volibear can gank Cho'Gath mid, no problem. So I personally didn't have a problem with it, but I have seen. I've had a lot of teammates die to it and complain like, "Oh my god, this super speed, giant Godzilla is running at me." Like, what is your Ash do or whatever when the Cho'Gath comes charging forward?
Pops the Shirelias and the Deadmans and stuff. And
but yeah, so it definitely was out of hand for solo queue. I was kind of happy that it was meta because I would just spam gank him, but.
Cassante also got some more nerfs. Skarner got more nerfs. So
yeah. I was going to mention, I sat down with like most of the C9 team and asked them about these changes. And Blabber had said he thinks these Skarner nerfs are big enough to make it so he's, not going to be perm banned. He thinks that Skarner like might not even be that good anymore, which, it's always hard to predict with these things. But right now he's so far in the OP category where he's like 90% banned in every single pro game, even with Fearless, which is kind of wild. So... yeah, I mean, because he's already a slow clearer, it's going to make him even more slow. And then the other one they mentioned was Thanatos thought that the Aurora changes were actually really big with the ratio on her E getting nerfed.
10%.
He thought that was going to be a pretty big nerf to her, with the reasoning being that like she's not really a champion that has a whole lot of like overkill.
You 100 to 0 them or you're useless.
Yeah, exactly. She's a very bursty champion. Even right now, it's like the margins of killing people are not really there. You kind of have to be ahead to do it. So this change could hurt her a lot if she's just not able to kill people anymore. So, yeah, definitely those are the ones that stood out to them as being like,
It's definitely interesting because I feel like a lot of times when people pick Aurora, I just feel like they just take it because it like fits the comp well, or it's like a strong laner and stuff like that. Like it has really good pick. I mean, 10% AP ratio off of the E is not nothing, but like I wonder, in practice, if you're at like 2 items, how much of a damage difference is that really, right? Like,
yeah, it's 5 base damage and then 10% ratio.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, if you're at 100 AP, obviously it's like 15 damage off your E from before, which, yeah, I mean, it's not
can definitely
the end of the
matter.
world. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Does it change your wave clear break points because you're
Yeah.
able to like QE the ranged? If they're surviving at 1 HP, then
Yeah,
you're just like bleeding gold that you would have the rest of the game. It's hard to say.
I think it'll definitely still get played in pro though,
Yeah, because
especially with Fearless, right?
yeah, I would agree. I think she's like a pseudo flex pick. You rarely see her top, but she can theoretically go top.
Yeah.
So that's obviously going to increase your priority for draft. And then I think she also just works really well with a lot of the junglers that are being played, whether you want to do like Nocturne Aurora, basically any champion that's trying to go in. She's just
Vi and stuff.
yeah, Vi Aurora, Wukong
Yep.
Aurora. Like she has really good combos with strong junglers right now. So I would still expect her to get played. Even
Yep.
she might not be like broken or whatever, but I think she'll still be played.
One thing I was also kind of interested in is I feel like Mundo has had some decent matchups like already, and like it's just a small buff, right? He's just getting like 27 base health or something like that. But there's some nerfs with some of the other top laners, like Best getting some nerfs and things like that. And I've already felt like there have been some situations where you could play Mundo, especially in Fearless. So I just always wonder, like, will this be the thing that makes people be like, oh, hey, where can I play Mundo? You know, like just like these small little buffs sometimes can like push you in that direction. And you know, it's always interesting because like I was talking to a Mundo player, and he was telling me how like he still thinks that Mundo Rumble is like a really good matchup, and that used to be like kind of like an old school kind of pick that people played, years ago. And so there's some matchups like that. I think it can be pretty solid. So it just made me wonder, like, oh, could we actually see it in pro, in the right situation?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I hadn't considered that because when you started mentioning these incremental buffs he keeps getting, it reminded me of Nasus from last year, where Nasus is one of these champs who just got. It was like he started showing up, and everyone's like, "Where did he come from?" And then you look at his patch history, and it was like, "Wow, he got like 400 consecutive buffs." Like, okay, and so Mundo could be in that category where it's actually funny with Mundo is because he just pretty much builds straight tank items. People think of him as a tank,
Yeah.
but his actual role in the game is he's I think he's considered a juggernaut because he doesn't have any CC. And he does a lot of damage. He's actually a damage dealer who just happens to build all tank items because he has to, and he just relies on his base damages. So I think lane swaps going away are going to help him a lot because obviously that style of champion cannot play from behind. Like you have to be strong enough to just run into them.
Yeah.
And yeah, if theoretically with enough buffs, you'll get strong enough to just be able to run to them and kill everyone. So yeah, maybe Mundo will be showing up soon.
It's funny how sometimes they just like keep giving little buffs to things until people recognize. It's almost like they have a mission and they're like, we're not going to stop buffing until people recognize this champ and start playing it. It's like, where is that threshold sometimes?
The opposite
you have to
of
recognize
that,
the patterns.
There's the opposite of that though with Elise, which is if this champ is ever played, no matter what, she's getting nerfed. I swear, Elise is the most nerfed champion if she peeks her head up for 1 second. It's like if she's a playable jungler, guaranteed getting nerfed after the next patch. Now she's showing up off roll. She's in support. And you know what? Time to nerf her.
Okay.
So I don't know. I might be the only Elise jungle player in the world, but it always happens.
I mean,
it's like something about this champion. It's like one too many riders just got level 3 turret dove. They're just like, nope, it's not happening. She's gone.
To play the other side, I will say, I think Elise support has been pretty degenerate. The Elise support plague that we have dealt with for the last month and a half, couple months there. I did feel like it was getting pretty degenerate. So I am personally okay with them with these nerfs. I know it's hitting close to your heart though, there with that one.
Yeah, replace Elise with Volibear, and how do you feel?
Well, you know what? Time to switch champs. I already started spreading out to other options.
Yeah, different ball bear skin.
Some backups. You know what? I don't like very many of the skins. But the one that I use, I only use it because the E animation looks different, and I think that people recognize it less.
Pay to win.
So it's the like, I don't even know what it's called, but it's like kind of more bestial primal or something like that.
More bestial primal Volibear.
Than a bear, yeah.
Yeah.
Udyr has a similar skin line or whatever, the same one. It's the one with like spikes out his backs. Anyways, the E.
Don't know he's black with the purple spikes?
No.
Oh, that's a good one.
It makes the E like a dark smoky color instead of like bright, lightning colored.
Okay.
You know what skins are really good, and this is total tangent, but they're like Halloween. I think they were Halloween ones, like the Nautilus and the Vagar one and stuff like that.
Oh, the Fright Knight?
Yeah.
Those ones are so good. The Vagar skin is actually peak. I love that one.
Yeah, those skins are actually really good. stand out. All right, it is now time to talk about First Stand. We've got our 5 teams. It's going to be the first international Fearless event, and I am really, really excited for it. We also had, I think the first matches got announced as well, and it's going to be, to kick things off, Carmine Corp versus Liquid, and then HLE versus Top as the back-to-back kickoff for day one. I think that is going to be such a banger start to the tournament. This is like the 2 kind of rivalry matches, right? And I think it's going to be insanely exciting. The 5 regions, of course, we have LCP, which is going to be represented by CFO. The Flying Oysters are back. Top won the LPL, HLE won LCK, and Carmine Corp won the LEC, surprisingly. At least surprisingly to me, because I thought G2 was just going to win like they always win. But yeah, do we want to start kind of going team by team, or do you want to just start with the matchup?
I think we got to do matchups.
Okay.
This day one matchups are just peak. Our day one is just like,
unless we lose, another trash.
No, I am pretty nervous. Like
if we lose, it doesn't even matter. We weren't warmed up yet.
I mean, first stand is kind of like a joke tournament.
Yeah, it's
right?
not that serious.
It's like,
Unless you win.
Yeah.
But if we win, then this is peak League of Legends.
So for those who don't know, is it full round robin? Every team will play every other team, and then the lowest team will get eliminated.
Only one region gets eliminated.
Yeah,
in the
they're actually
first
executed
round.
on stage.
Wow, that's serious.
Yeah, Free comes out and off with your head if you get last
your
place.
Release. I'm pretty excited for these matchups. I mean, I think Carmine Corp making it is like it's kind of poetic as a jungler for Yike to beat G2. You know, a team kicks out their jungler, they blame for all their problems. They're like, "Oh, I never got any jungle pressure." I don't know the story, but I'm projecting.
That's what they said. Yeah.
And then he comes back with a new team and 3-0s them. It is justice for junglers everywhere.
Yeah.
I was actually really surprised that Yike got replaced. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I understood the like thought process of, okay, you know, we've had our roster for a while. You know, like maybe we need to get the most out of Caps. Like we want to try to do well internationally. We're already winning LEC all these times. We need to like change something up, you know, because I had heard a lot of talk last year at Worlds from G2 of like, if it's not now, it's never going to happen. And it was kind of like that feeling for them of like, you know, we've had a lot of these players around for a long time. We like just chain win LEC for free. Like we need to do more, or like, what's the point? And so, you know, they made, I think, changes kind of like under that thought process. But I did feel bad for Yike when it's like you come in as a rookie, you have a great year 2, not as hot. I think he did kind of like have a little bit of regression, didn't look as strong individually. But I was very surprised to see someone like really young second-year guy just gets replaced like that. And sometimes that happens off a good team, and then you're kind of just like into the ether. You end up on some bad team, and then you're not looking as good, and then you're just like out of pro, right? Like sometimes it happens to people. So it was really cool to see him on K-Corp and playing well. And this team, I think, has just been really exciting. I mean, for me, I think it's just really good for the league, right? Like G2, it got to a point where every split year, Fnatic's going to do it this time. Like Fnatic's doing so well in the regular season. I'm like, no, they're not. Like they're just going to lose again. What do you mean? Like they haven't won a single time since Caps left Fnatic, right? Like never won. And that was like what, 2017? You know, like to me, it just kind of got to the point where it's like, I know the ending of the story. I'm just rewatching the same show over and over. Like, yeah, you can tell me that this guy's the new enemy or this guy's the new strong one, but G2 just wins in the end. And so I think this was like fun for me to kind of like break that up and show that there are more teams that can like challenge them at the top. Vladdy, I think, was like so impressive for me. Obviously, there was a lot of talk about Kalist because, you know, there was so much hype for him as this like French rookie coming up and all the talk about him, you know, being too young to join the LEC and all these teams wanting him and everything. But like to me, I think Vladdy was such a star. I thought Kana had a really, really good split as well. And the team is just exciting to watch, right? And has like a huge, huge fandom. So I think it's really cool for the league.
I 100% do. I mean, the story is just so cool. I mean, Kalista is 18 years old. Vladdy's only 19 years old. And you find this much success. And they had to overcome G2. They lost to them first and then come back, you know, and are able to win it in the finals. It's a very uplifting story, both for like Yike revenge arc, you know, plus you got these young players coming up and making a name for themselves. And for KC in general, from being like mocked last year to like coming in storming this year is us.
Yeah, I mean, that org has a ton of fans. at 100%. Like they got some loud fans for sure. So it's got to be awesome for them to get a win like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's also cool, kind of how they're doing it, and the drafts that they've gone for, and the coaching staff. They just kept giving interviews in the finals where they're like, you know what, our biggest mistake was putting Connor on tanks. We're never doing that again. And then we're like, get him unleashed, and then he gets the 5-person Mega Gnar, picture perfect play to like end it and everything. It's like, honestly, the story is it just came together so well for them.
The Vladdy Victors and stuff as well.
Yeah, Victor from Arcane for sure. That was the biggest
dude,
ultimate.
The more it gets it was off of that Mega Gnar, where it gets all 5 kills, and the ultimate is the whole screen. Like it's literally just floating around the whole river and Dragon Pit, and it's like spilling over into the blue buff and stuff.
Killing Baron and Dragon at the same time.
Literally.
Did you see, by the way, Yike's tweet? Because he said, "I'm here to end the G2 era now," too.
Oh, that's hype.
So like, it's just like so many, like everything is on their side. There's so much this like wave of momentum.
Yeah, I mean, it is really exciting. Like you mentioned, they did play G2 before, and like in that series, Kalista had a really rough time, and like that was a 3-1 for G2, if I'm recalling correctly. They had a much closer series against Fnatic. So, if you didn't watch any KC, it's not as though this team was just like the runaway favorite and dominated everyone the whole split and then won as expected. It was actually Fnatic who was kind of considered to be the team that was looking the best. And G2 obviously is G2, so they're going to be in the finals as well. But like, K-Corp kind of came a little bit out of nowhere, I thought, as like an actual title contender. And, just... Yeah, I can't say enough about Vladdy. I feel like he had just such a monster season. This guy to me is the star of the team. Played so incredibly well. Even when he's being pressured heavily, he seems to find like a real way to contribute in later game stages. And like he plays these kind of like scaling picks really well, like the Victor, the Azir, the Corki, like all these kind of picks. I think he is so adept at. So I do think, there is potential to be like, okay, well, how is he going to look outside of those picks? Can he play some of these like more aggressive picks if that becomes the meta? And maybe that's a concern for them. There's always going to be the concern of like, okay, when you have young players, how will they perform internationally, in kind of like one of their big first events, and those type of things, I think are, kind of the question marks for this team. But at the same time, I feel like when you talk about Kana and you talk about him being so good on carries, it's like the lane swap changes obviously are great for a player who doesn't want to play tanks. And they have some really strong carries. They have that's kind of like pop off potential. So I think they're going to be a pretty exciting team to watch.
Yeah. Well, as far as the matchup, in our matchup preview though, I think the biggest issue for our side is going to be top side of the map, because you're talking a lot about Vladdy. I mean, Kana was looking really good as well. Yike kept like smite stealing a lot of stuff too, and Umpty is the opposite of that. So I'm just like, that's why I'm so nervous for this. I'm like, okay, man.
Side are you on?
He's the smite victim.
Yeah. So I'm like, it does kind of like get in your head since smites start going one way a bunch for you. At least for me, it does. If I miss a whole bunch in a row, then I start to be like, okay, let's not flip, and I start like freaking out if the enemy jungler is like in fog of war or something, and I'm like, everyone go get him out.
Shoot him
yeah, like zone. That type of stuff. But also stuff like getting picked off. For me though, I think laning phase for Yon and Core JJ, as far as Freak doing everything he can to get a 2v2 laning phase bottom lane. Woo, I am hoping that we get to see peak Yon and Core JJ laning phase, because that was one issue that Team Liquid admitted themselves. They're like, we need to work on our early game. And when they say we, I think they mean everybody besides Yon and Core JJ, or at least more so everybody else. So I would say, first look on this matchup, I would say I hope that we can play towards bottom side. I was already like advocating for Umpty, starting top side camps and pathing towards bottom sides like every single game previously. I still think that will, be true in
Even
this,
more so because now
in
the
this
bot lane
series.
won't be top. So they, you
Yeah,
never have,
exactly.
that's the only time he should have had top is when the bot lane was up
And
there.
so I get nervous because only one region is getting eliminated.
It's a
but
really important match, actually.
I'm definitely super looking forward to this one. I do have confidence in Spawn and Team Liquid, to put a big magnifying glass on the beginning of this split, and they've already been in like that high pressure mode,
Yeah.
which is like maybe kind of a small silver lining because Team Liquid, everyone was turbo flaming them, and everyone's like, they're our weakest team that we're sending down to Brazil and all that stuff. They went into emergency mode pretty early, so maybe that will give some big benefits. Also, like they practiced a whole bunch last year versus G2, and so they played a whole bunch versus Yike, and so they'll know that pretty well. So I'm hoping, and I believe I'm still gonna, I'm gonna predict TL. I hope they can pull it out. I am definitely nervous for the matchup though.
Yeah, it is true that if we look at the split so far, TL's not been doing as well as they normally do, but they did just win. And I think it's worth noting that TL has done well internationally in all the other events, right? Like they've had really good series against T1. And so I don't think there's any reason to write them off. Like, I've seen some opinions online of that. And yeah, I mean, I think they'll show up. I don't have any reason to doubt them. I think, people will talk about,
I think
lane
Worlds would
swaps.
be the reason, right?
Yeah.
Worlds, they didn't play nearly as well.
Yeah.
And then this split, they looked more shaky. I mean, they did end up winning, but like that, I think is where that concern comes from. Because going into Worlds, I wasn't worried, right? But like coming out of Worlds, so I was, okay, maybe I should have been.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible, but no, I mean, I think they'll do well. I think NA greater than EU for sure.
Good old fashioned NAEU brawl, always exciting.
Yeah, I mean, the sad part is with the way that the format works, unless we get multiple major upsets, this is probably the only time we'll play them, right? So this is kind of like the rivalry for all the marbles match because, expectations are that it's probably going to be, LCK, LPL, both make it through for sure. If NA and EU both make it through, you're likely to play against those teams. So you'd probably need like a double upset to be able to actually play against each other, in a best of 5. Or, someone has like a monster, like early first round robin or whatever and gets like first or second, and then maybe you could have some sort of thing like that. But you need a lot of upsets probably to realistically get us to play them again. So it feels like extra pressure for that because it always feels to me like this is for the bragging rights for a while, right? And we've been doing well lately.
We've been doing so well.
We've been doing really well.
It feels so good to crash in Europe.
They've never made it out of Swiss stage at Worlds. We're back to back.
Yeah, last year just felt so good. As an NA rep, as an NA fan, like we had so many really good performances, and it felt like a lot of our young players and stars were the ones at the forefront. Everybody has been panicking for the last few years since Bjergsen retired and Double If retired. They're like, what are we gonna do? But really big props to Masu, Jan, APA, Sniper. So many of the next generation, I felt
Busio
like
as well, I think.
Busio for sure too. Like so many of the next generation for us have done such a good job last year. Building up and performing under pressure at internationals. Really did have this like big uplifting, I feel like, feeling for the entire region. And so I'm hoping we can keep that going.
Me
keep
too,
that
man.
momentum.
Yeah, definitely really excited, but also really nervous because please just don't let us be the fifth team.
Excitement and nervousness are like the same. It's two sides of the same coin here. Yeah. That's why you get a lot of
positive mental attitude. We're gonna win. The other matchup that's starting off, it's the second matchup on the first day, I believe, is Top versus HLE. This, I think, is going to be really, really exciting. Maybe we talk a little bit about Top first because they just had such a cool lower bracket run. And it feels like the first time in a while that we've had, like someone other than the kind of like usual suspects as far as mid lane winning a title in the LPL. And the run that Cream had to do, the names that he had to get past to actually make this run happen were so insane. He beat Rookie, then he beat Doomby, then he beat Knight, then he beat Scout. And it's like,
Okay.
that is just a who's who. And then obviously in the finals, they played against Anyone's Legend. And it's not as big of a name as far as that goes. But that is like 4 of the most famous, highly rated mid laners in the entire world. And for that to be your run just to make it into finals, and then he beat Shanks too. But obviously I think if you're more of a casual fan, you probably haven't heard of Shanks. But Anyone's Legend had a really crazy run as well to be able to actually make the finals. I don't think anyone expected them to do it. They were horrible last year. And then Flandre joined the team and they made finals. But I think it's just it's a really cool story, right? To see Cream kind of have that moment where you run the gauntlet. If you added Faker and Chovy in there, then it's literally, the who's who. So it's definitely really cool. And people will know a lot of the names on top, obviously. Kanavi, 369, Jackie Love, Crisp. We've got a lot of international titles here. We've got a lot of success. So I do think people will be pretty familiar with their names. And I feel like they looked really strong overall. There's not a lot of weak points I can really point to. I will say, watching through their playoffs, the only thing that really stood out to me is kind of a question mark, because Jackie Love used to have that reputation of he's that crazy guy who sometimes ints. I don't really think that's him anymore. I really do think his level of consistency is pretty astounding now. And I feel like he's playing even some really tough situations where he's on a low mobility carry against Harvey Dive. He's positioning really well. He's playing incredibly well. I just feel like Kanavi sometimes is not on the same page as the team and is forcing plays, going too far, right? And
I'd say a lot of those moments, at least for me, were when he was on Vi. Do you see that correlation? Because I definitely did see that. I know Mito's a big Vi hater.
It is definitely a Vi thing, but I felt like it was other stuff too. I felt like similar things on Italy and just there was just some plays where it's not even just pressing R and going 2 screens away. It's just I'm gonna force a fight at Grubs, but my mid lane's pushed in, or I'm gonna go invade Grump on bot side, but my bot lane isn't to the tower yet, and it just felt like he's one step ahead. It's not necessarily a bad idea, but it just felt like he's doing it maybe too early, and it just felt a little bit disjointed. I'm not trying to flame him because I still think he played really, really well in the majority of the games, but there's not a lot of glaring weaknesses towards this team, right?
And then he had the 13-0 Lee Sin game. That was, I always get hyped for the big kill count jungle games. So I was a pop off one too. As far as the rest of the team that you're talking about, though, for me, my biggest takeaway was 369. I think 369 is playing so well right now, and the top laners going to first stand are very intimidating. Especially, his first matchup is versus Zeus, and Zeus has been his international daddy, basically. In their
fair, Zeus has been everyone's international daddy.
To be fair, Zeus is, okay, people are like, oh, if he wins again, then we can call him best top laner ever. I think you can already, make the argument.
Yeah.
He is.
No top laners really have the
top lane goat.
Top.
Yes, if you want to be for sure the accolades, and the actual trophies and stuff to back it up. Yes, win one more and then you're for sure top lane GOAT. I think already he's the top lane GOAT. Regardless though, 369 was playing really well on the tanks, on the carries, and he's got his Grog is insane, so many different looks for him in games where other members of top were underperforming. I feel like he stepped up a lot of them. Even if you don't like Cassante, insane Cassante game as well. So yeah, I like you were trying to highlight, Jackie Love and 369, I think also are both playing really well. So this matchup, coming off of NA versus EU and then straight into this is gonna be just max back-to-back bangers, I think, on day one.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I haven't seen all the matches from the top China and Korea teams yet, but obviously completely star-studded lineups, so it's going to deliver pretty much no matter what. What do you think about PCS? Have you guys been following them?
We should talk about HLE at least some first.
Yeah, for the other side of this matchup.
Yeah.
So HLE, if you guys don't know the roster, Zeus is on this team. He left T1. Surprise, surprise. If you haven't been following, it's Peanut, Zeka, Viper, Delight, and Zeus. So this is an insane team. I will say with the LCK Cup early on, I felt like T1 and DK were kind of looking the best. So I was a little bit surprised. HLE had a pretty crazy run in playoffs, and they have this
5-game series, baby,
Yeah.
all day, every day.
and they have this streak now. I want to say it's 9 straight game 5s that Zeka has won.
Yeah.
He
Something
just
like
he
that.
just like doesn't lose in game 5, and also HLE doesn't lose in game 1. So it's like there's this whole thing where they like always win game 1, they always win game 5. So like the only way you can win is if you beat them in 4 games. You have to like lose game 1 and then sweep them. Like obviously it's kind of silly, but it's just one of those fun stats. And yeah, HLE went 5 games against T1, 5 games against Genji, 5 games against DK, and then 5 games against Genji again. So it's like
It's kind of crazy.
it's really crazy how many games they played. And this team, to me, I think is actually like a pretty big favorite for winning first stand. Over the last couple of years, like I feel like I'm more feeling like it's like closer, or I feel like LPL has like more good teams, and I'm kind of like feeling more stoked about them. But this is only a 1-team tournament, and I feel like HLE looks so bulletproof. Zayas, I think, is just like point blank period. Whether you want to call him the GOAT or not, who cares? He is the best top laner in the world. I think this guy is just absolutely insane. Like he is playing so phenomenally well. Zeka is super flexible now. Like he like obviously became known as like, the Akali Salas guy, but like I think he had already stepped beyond that last year, and I feel like he's continued to improve with that. Viper to me is the most flexible AD carry player in the world. Like he can play all the mages, he can play everything. He hasn't necessarily had to bring out that a lot, but like this guy has insane win rates. When MageBot was popular, he was like the best MageBot AD carry I think in the world. And Delight is just playing so insane.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you can just go down the lineup, and every single one
Yeah.
of these players is a superstar. It's funny when you're like, oh yeah, Viper's so versatile, and when mages were played in bottom lane, I'm like, how long ago is that? I'm like,
Long time ago.
that was so long ago. It's crazy, but it still sticks out in my mind. The Griffin days, a lot of people very fondly remembered the Griffin days, but like he was insane, not just on mages, like Yasuo bot, like you have the feeling that he can literally play like any champion in the entire game extremely well, which is crazy because when you started talking about Zayas, my first thing, I was going to be like, look at his round 5 picks too. He's like, pick Olaf and Gwen and like all these like game 5s, high pressures. And it's just like, oh crap. Like we have the best top player in the world like running at our faces on like some sort of like mega carry type champion, the Aatrox. He played a Nivea top. Like this team is just like, I feel like their fearless game is going to be insane. This tournament is like constructed for them. I think they're incredibly clutch as well. So it just, even when you do, if you do, start to win some games versus them, it's like the pressure is not off of you because they have performed over and over and over and over and over again in these 5-game series in the game 5 to clutch. And it almost feels like they won't get nervous at all in any, like, even if it's a best of 3, the 3rd game of the series, whatever it is, whenever pressure is on, I feel like this team is going to be so confident, and they're just so good individuals that their skirmishing always looks like they're better skirmishing. Like their team fighting is insane too. Like
I'm trying to understand how a team can have those stats where they get to game 5 so often and they win it so often. Because, I feel like if you're that much better than your opponents, you shouldn't be getting to game 5 that often. But if you're getting there and then winning every time, that just seems such an anomaly. I don't know. Like, what do they just get overconfident until it really matters?
The meme answer is they do it for content, and LCK has mandated that you got to get full 5-game series, because viewership always goes up for the most games.
Okay. I mean, who knows, right? Like, it can just be one of these kind of like random things or whatever, or it can be that they just don't really get nervous, right? And I do think I've always felt that's such a big thing in pro play. Even players who are just absolutely incredible, like top of the world, in certain situations, you're gonna get more nervous. And if this team seems to be like less affected by that, it can kind of start to build, right? Like you're maybe a little bit less nervous, then you start winning, and then you kind of keep winning, and then it's like building your confidence that it's like, well, I won all these other times in game 5. Like, why wouldn't I win now? And I feel like it can get in your opponent's head a little bit. Like, they just don't feel like they're out of any game. It's like, well, I've won 9 game 5s in a row. Like, why wouldn't I win 10? You know, and the other team is maybe thinking like, oh God, we got to close this out. Oh God.
Yeah. As far as like them, why they even got to so many game 5s too in the first place, I feel like the competition at LCK was quite strong. This split, you know, Gen G, you were saying you even T1 at the, you know, beginning and stuff too. It's like, I feel like the competition in LCK was quite good. So.
Yeah, it's gonna be a crazy start. HLE definitely my pick to win the tournament, but I mean, top is no slouch, and it's gonna be an exciting day one.
And Team Liquid.
The
first standers.
They will stand.
They'll be the last to sit.
They will. What about PCS?
So LCP, it's LCP now. So
what about LCP?
CFO won. They were able to take down Talon in the finals, and CFO, I think, like people are gonna know quite a few players. I think here. Junjia is obviously pretty well known. Doggo as well as Kai Wing, I think, are pretty well known. And then they have Driver Rest are kind of their 2 top laners. But I think this team, like mechanically, you know, they have some really strong players. It's always kind of like a similar concern, I feel like, with some of the other regions that I have, where the question is, I think, like, how well are you going to play out some of like the macro situations? How well are you going to play out some of the setups? I felt like when I went back and tried to watch some of their losses, those were the things that I had kind of like more of a question mark around. But I do think they have some really talented individuals.
Yeah, I would talk to Molecule a little bit about this one too. And he was keeping up with their stories throughout the year and stuff too. And he was talking about the risks that PSG took in kicking Jinji in the first place. Because within the region, he's the best player, and he won MVP again, and he won another championship again. And like, spoiler alert, when they kicked him, he went to their, you know, one of their biggest rivals, and like that's always the drawback. But he was talking about how PSG and management they have such a focus on international, you know, and they'd made so many internationals, and they're like,
gotta make it there.
We gotta do something. But then like, it is a huge risk. You're like, okay, well, we're
kind of like the G2 story then.
Yeah, it's like, well, we're giving over Jinjia. And the biggest thing to me though is like when I was looking at the top lane situation, to me as a player, I never want to be in a situation like that where they're swapping them out like almost like 50-50. And it's because to me it makes it more nervous. But he was saying like Rest and Driver have a very good relationship, and it does seem to be working for them. So going into Fearless, maybe that can be an extra asset in Fearless. As far as I know people always say that.
Even if it's like, even if you have different champion pools, you have to tell the team what player is playing before the game.
Yeah. I've always thought that was kind of like
the way that they've been doing it, and he was talking about how Rest is usually the guy that has the more crazy picks, but they've been starting
bring him out later.
They've been starting him first, because he's also the better Cassante, and so they've been like first picking game winning like Cassante, and like I don't know top laners have some weird bond, so you know maybe it works for them, and they're sharing the practice time. And it has all been working out. So if you're winning, it's always good. But like if you then go to international and you're playing like Hanwha Life and top esports, and like you're getting like dumped on in scrims and stuff, like then do more cracks start to form, do more like arguments start to happen.
It's always weird too, because then it's like, you know, you go international wherever you're playing as harder competition, and a player has a bad game. Do you then just like swap them out because like the game was bad? You know what I mean? Like you just like instantly make that pivot. But it is an interesting situation, because we've had these types of kind of like situations in the past more. I feel like actively having a team that's swapping 2 players back and forth is very uncommon now. It was kind of a trend for like a while, but it's pretty uncommon now. So it is unique how they do that.
Yeah. I will say though, like the team it's a Jinjia team, and it's pretty similar with like playing around him. So I think that most teams will come in like expecting the typical like jungler led team. You're playing around where he is. So number one goal, if we're playing for them, track Jinjia everybody on the team, like you need to keep that in your mind because that's where they're going to be fighting is around him.
He's also spamming like Xin Zhao and some of these kind of like aggressive picks. Like Xin Zhao was his most played by quite a lot. And it feels like he wants to play that style, right? Like where, it is going to be about him. It is going to be about, getting him his goal, like making things happen and just kind of like fighting really well around the map.
Yeah. You think would you call them the clear underdog, or do you think they're close to like the Western teams?
I think they're the underdog, but I don't think it's some like
It's
gigantic.
foggy. I would say it's not clear.
No, I don't think it's some huge gap. I mean, I think that we've seen some of the smaller regions have been like improving year over year and kind of getting more competitive. And this is like the best of this new conglomerate of regions, right? LCP is that new kind of like merger between like LJL, PCS, LCO, etc. Right? Like they're all kind of involved in that.
We lost to PSG last year, so I would not say clear. I would say everybody A game all the time.
Stay clenched.
Obviously, exactly. Stay clenched. Yeah. Full confidence, but stay clenched.
Stay clenched. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's going to be exciting, right? And I think you want it to be competitive. Definitely my hope is that, my expectation is that LEC, LTA, and LCP are all going to be quite competitive. My hope is that we can also punch up and have competitive series against the LCK and the LPL, like we have been able to be treated to last year, right? I didn't have big expectations when FlyQuest got drawn into Gen G. I thought that was the worst draw that they could get. I actually was like pretty hopeful against everyone else, and then they got Gen G, and I was like, well, we're dead. And then we went 5 games. So, and we saw T1, almost got taken down by TL twice in best of 3s. So my hope is definitely that we can punch up. My expectation is that we are going to be, having these 3 teams kind of in the mix. And it is going to be super high pressure, especially if it becomes more stratified. If it is like, okay, LCK, LPL are clearly number 1 and 2, and no one from the bottom 3 is beating them, then, one wrong move in a best of 3 against either of those teams can mean you're 5th, right? One bad play that throws a Baron, that throws a game, that can lose you the series. That really can make the difference. Because, if the teams can't punch up and take down, and no one takes down LCK or LPL, then you have 2 best of 3s to decide your whole life, basically, right? And it's
your
like,
whole life is now determined.
Whole life in first stand.
Yeah, I mean it's a very, very short tournament for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be interesting. It's also like really action packed because it's 7 straight show days, no dark days. So it's like we fly in and it's just back to back days. Boom, in, out.
That's kind of hype.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. So if you're gonna be interested in League of Legends internationally, this is gonna be like the week for you because it is gonna be nonstop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right. Well, I think that is gonna do it for this week's episode of The Dive. Our internet's dead, so let me pull up my outro here.
I noticed you don't usually slow down there. Usually we're like a ramp up.
Yeah, I had to remember all the things I have to say. So remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of The Dive. You can also check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere else. First Stand is going to begin on Monday, March 10th, 1 a.m. Pacific, where TL is taking on K-Corp. That's going to be followed by Top versus HLE. Best 2 possible matchups, I think, for day 1. It is a dream draw. It's going to be a banger. Thanks for watching. We will see you soon.
1 a.m. Pacific. See you there.
That is